So what transpired then in Woonsocket? How did why do we find ourselves this week in a dispute with the Energy Facility Siting Board and the good people of Johnston with regard? What actually went down in Woonsocket?
So that's a wonderful question about the disparity between what happened in Johnston versus in Woonsocket. Woonsocket approached this matter with dignity and transparency. At least the city council did. The city actually invited Burrillville's town council to speak in a joint meeting at Harris Hall regarding the issues at hand. They asked some really great questions about the tax treaty and really Burrillville's relationship with Invenergy. They also offered a public hearing, which I did speak at, with Invenergy, as you speak about Invenergy not really wanting to answer questions without knowing them ahead of time. One thing I will say about the public hearing is the people of Woonsocket were able to ask questions and get answers from Invenergy. We can dispute, of course, the validity of what Invenergy said, but they did at least come to the table as far as that. Meanwhile, Johnston, as Woonsocket became almost a lost cause, Johnston came to play, and at the same night that the city council in Woonsocket voted to sell the water or not, Johnston came in last minute, literally last minute as far as open meetings act requirements, and voted to sell their water, which is being disputed if it's their water or not, versus Woonsocket, who had a very transparent process. So it's quite interesting to see the two cities. You have a city, the two municipalities that Woonsocket is really hurting for money, and they did the right thing, versus Johnston, who truly last minute wasn't allowing their people to have a say. And so I think that really speaks to the people of Woonsocket and our dedication not only to our city, but to the state and to our peers in Burrillville.
Right, and again, hats off to the city council, because my take on it and my reading of it was they simply wouldn't stand for that bums rush. If you're of mine and Paul's generation, I think the term was bums rush, wasn't it?
Sure.
Just kind of push it through, and you'll get a chance to answer questions when we determine you have a chance to answer questions.
No, also to their credit, if I can jump in for a second, to their credit, to the city council's credit. So the land trust did two learn the facts in Woonsocket, both of them attended by city council members. So if anybody understands open meeting laws and the amount of people that got together, they actually had to vote to attend those presentations. So it was a notice in the paper. One night, 5 of them showed up. The next day, 2 of them showed up. We did 2 presentations there, lasting about an hour and a half, 2 hours long. Great questions by the city council. In stark contrast between Woonsocket and Johnston, I cannot find a place in Johnston that will allow me to do a Learn the Facts program in the town of Johnston.
Right. Alicia, what's your take then on Johnston? What's is it the political climate? Is it and these are my words, not yours. I'm very careful about this because the people in your movement are very again, there's a level of maturity and fair-mindedness that sometimes I find it difficult to maintain. So my words, is there self-dealing? I guess, what do you think Johnston stands to gain?
I almost I truly feel that the way that the mayor has spoken, that he may, as we have, the Broad Rock Energy Center in Johnston, and of course, Mount Johnston, our landfill, I almost feel like this was a simple, well, we're going to get something finally, as literally all of the trash of the state goes to Johnston. I feel that this was perhaps a way of saying, well, you guys have used us, now we're going to use you. Quite honestly, I feel that it's a way to get even
Now,
with the rest of the state.
now talk about the makeup of that meeting. Now, were you at the Johnston meeting or were you at the Woonsocket meeting?
I viewed the Woonsocket meeting. I was quite ill during this whole process, so unfortunately I was watching it. Luckily, our city does allow streaming of the meetings. Unfortunately, Johnston does not. So I was unable to really interact with the Johnston meeting. But I will say, in Johnston, there were quite a few citizens of Johnston who were blocked out of that meeting, and there is an ongoing contestment with the Attorney General regarding an Open Meetings Act violation. So again, Woonsocket was able to watch it online. I could have very easily gone to that meeting if I was able to. Johnston, the small hall where it was located was packed with, I would contest if they were all Johnston residents or not. Well, Johnston taxpayers and Johnston residents were barred from that meeting.
Right. So the net result then, you've got a mayor, acting like his own little boss hog. If I can play a 1980s, 70s TV reference. So you got boss hog in Johnston, trying to rule the roost. Really no meaningful municipal input. They ran with it, and they're trying. To me, it just strikes me as essentially a quick money grab. Now with Judge Silverstein in consideration, but no clear timeline, what do you think the next step is?
So that's again, as we go back to the Public Law 1915, Chapter 1278, which is a very lengthy law, but there's one piece of it regarding domestic or municipal use. They will need to, as Jerry Elmer said, find a second water source, or find a water source rather, if this falls through. So Invenergy needs to have a plan B. I actually attended one of the open houses and I did attempt to speak at length at with one of their representatives, discussing, what is the second water source, what is your plan B, and very, very, cocky might not be the family-friendly term, but he very proudly said, well, there are other communities who have already talked to us about trying to become the next Johnston. So I do have that concern, as there are other cities and towns in the state that haven't necessarily opposed the power plant outwardly yet, that we could be seeing Woonsocket becoming a major player again, or communities like North Providence doing that. So I don't think this battle is over. I think we need to continue to speak with our legislators in our communities and make sure that they are aware of concerns about the power plant. But I truly don't feel this battle is over in Woonsocket.
Alicia, are you a fan of The Simpsons?
Yes, I am.
So if I say something like, that water idea, that's not a Johnson idea, that's a Shelbyville idea, will that mean anything to you?
Yes.
Monorail. Or, to quote the immortal Bart Simpson, I'm sorry, Mom, the mob has spoken. Again, if it wasn't so, I guess tragicomic is possibly the best spin I can put on the city of Johnston's efforts to literally, where I come, the vernacular in the New York City area is it's a smash and grab, which basically you smash some windows, you try and grab something real quick, and you run before 5-0 gets to you. Now I'm really dating myself. It's I would imagine the environmentalist community is in an uproar over this. Is that a fair statement?
Sure, but Pat, I do want to make it clear, I don't feel that this is just an environmental issue. I believe it's a statewide issue. We're challenging a law that's been in place for over a century. The people of Scituate have made an incredible sacrifice to be stewards of the land in Scituate for this water. And now we have a Chicago-based company, not even a Rhode Island-based company, coming in and literally challenging the landscape of our water resources, literally pitting cities and towns against each other. I know that the people of Burrillville, as many people say, to know them is to love them. They have outpoured to Woonsocket to support our small businesses because they do recognize the sacrifice that we have made in solidarity with them. So I do feel that this is an environmental issue, but on a larger scale, this is a statewide, almost ethics issue regarding really what an out-of-state agency has or company has regarding our natural resources. I mean, the people of Burrillville, they've gone out to nearly every city and town that will hear them telling their story. They're going to have a north or south to north, but it is the north-south trail on Sunday. There are 3 hikers who will be making that quite long hike to aware the rest of the state regarding this issue, and that will affect us all. So I do definitely feel that we need to speak for the trees and the bugs and the creatures, and that is a very important point. But this is a catastrophic issue for the state of Rhode Island as a whole.
Right, because, and I'm going to throw this question out to both of you,
sure.
And I love both your response. You mentioned that it's an out-of-state company. There really is no guarantee that the Invenergy Corporation even maintains ownership of this past its initial construction phase, is there?
No, none. And you have to go back to who actually is going to fund it. So Invenergy is a holding company. They build things, hold it for a while, and although that's not what holding company really means. But then they try to sell it.
Right.
So most likely, some of the major investment firms will be investing in this. They may buy it too. The one thing I want to get to, and please go on with. Invenergy is our Nestle's. Invenergy Corporation, and so very, very well. This company is a company that is going to town, sometimes municipalities within a municipality, 2 or 3 districts, water districts, all pitting one against the other, all for the sake of money. Nothing wrong with money, I like money too, but in this sense of fighting each other. Woonsocket, I don't know if you remember, but as soon as they said no, as soon as that city council said no, the very next day there was a 24-page document with a signed, sealed statement from the town of Johnston, mayor of the town of Johnston, agreeing to that sale of water. The very next day, everything was in place. The site, the delivery, the number of trucks, the amount of water, all the contracts with even a signed letter from the town council was in that packet of information the day after Woonsocket said no, which was, and correct me, Alicia, it literally was 24 hours. Within 24 hours, the next day, Johnston had their meeting, and then all of a sudden, magically, there was this packet, this 34-page packet that essentially said, hey, we got everything we wanted.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, go ahead, Alicia.
I mean, it's Paul, you're absolutely right. And I do want to point out as well, the same exact proposition or payment in lieu of taxes that the city of Woonsocket was offered to Johnston. It is the same exact deal. And I just briefly, I do want to go back to your point, Pat, about and Paul regarding will Invenergy keep this plant if it is cited? And I would argue not. No, I don't think it will stay with Invenergy. We've seen Ocean State Power, which is the first power plant in Burrillville, because let's not forget they do already have one, that has transferred hands, I believe numerous times. TransCanada just sold it. We're seeing Spectra has merged with Enbridge. So we're seeing right now this company from Chicago going out and pitting our cities and towns against each other, and they might not even exist in 20 years. But if this plant is sited, the plant will still be there. So I think that's something to keep in mind, that Ocean State Power and the Spectra pipeline have been bought and sold several times.
And that's the hallmark of all of these organizations. You think back to the casinos. Casinos come in, they make a promise, and 3 iterations later, 3 corporate chiefs later, and a trail of tears, who do you sue? Who do you fight? If you look at these for-profit prisons that come along, again, they go from town to town. To use the phrase, to date myself here from the Music Man, every boy needs a band. What's astonishing, though, is the very same company that will go to an open house and maintain this aura of friendliness and partnership is like a snake. And I don't use that lightly. I say a snake because if in our prior iteration of the coalition, we had the folks from Pennsylvania call in, who I believe was it Elizabeth Township, Pennsylvania, call in and talk about how once their town formally rejected, the lawsuits started flying. And again, they couldn't take the rejection, so they are the corporate equivalent of an energy stalker. We can't be your energy company, so we're going to sue you into oblivion so that no one's your energy company. I'm almost expecting one of the Invenergy people come out and say to the people of Burrillville, "I'm your biggest fan." I mean, it's you've got a situation where they maintain this quote unquote partnership and this willingness to move forward hand in hand with the people of Burrillville. Yet at the same time, given any opportunity at the court level, here you saw on Monday the specter of a attorney who happens to be a state legislator only in Rhode Island, not just fighting the case, which I get, everybody's entitled to an attorney, but even fighting the legitimacy of the town of Burrillville or any one of these organizations, CLF, Jerry Elmer, all these folks, Burrillville Land Trust, Keep Rhode Island Beautiful, any one of these folks to even have the temerity, the sheer gall, or the legal standing to even sue them. When do we expose as a society the big lie? These people are not your friends, they're leeches.
And Pat, you bring an absolutely valid point regarding Invenergy and how they've interacted with our colleagues in Pennsylvania. The almost two-faced, well, we're going to be friendly with you, but when you say no, we're going to go hog wild against you. And that really, truly is my concern, especially with my city in Woonsocket, that if we do, unfortunately, come to the point again of selling our water, which, by the way, PWSB does not have any involvement with Woonsocket's water. We own our water and we maintain our water. I'm afraid that if Woonsocket says yes and sells their water, that in 5 or 10 years, this will hurt us, that Invenergy will, or whoever in the future, is going to come back and bite us because of what we've seen in Jessup and what we've seen in Elizabethtown, Chip. I don't think this is a company that is worth working with, just from the way that they have treated our peers across the nation.
Right. No, I'd have to agree with you. There's clearly a track record there. There's no shortage of behavioral evidence not supposed, not hypothetical, but real world reactions to, on many levels, nearly identical situations. Which leads me to the next question, Alicia. Now, feel free to respond to this or not. Why do you think our governor seems so hell-bent to continue to push this madness forward?
So that's funny you asked that, Pat, because I believe that the first time I did call into your show, I think you actually asked me that same question, and my answer stays the same. Mm-hmm. I think this is a publicity stunt for her. I think that while she's grandstanding, as she did today, regarding Rhode Island being the first state in the union to have offshore wind, and as we're seeing with our members of Congress as well, saying how great it is with climate change, that we need to protect our state. I really feel that in the end, Gina is looking out for her own interests. We see it in her the way that the people who are donating money to her campaign, despite her saying that it will have no influence in her decision. I truly feel, I mean, this is an EFSB issue. She does not have a decision. So for her to say that, first off, is incredibly off-putting. But I do feel that Gina, in the end, this is a publicity stunt to get certain special interest groups to back her. And I think it's just a good way for her to try to win re-election when she goes up for governor again.
Or when she goes for national office. Because the resume that she presents to a national audience is, let's just say, is vastly different than the reality that we have to embrace every day as Rhode Islanders. I wish she was. I guess I wish at least some of it was even true. When I look at her media efforts across the nation. Most recently in Chicago, to position herself as this progressive Democrat who simultaneously is able to foster economic growth. It's an alternate reality. As one of my heroes, Jerry Seinfeld, would say, I think it's Gina Raimondo Bizarro world. Any closing thoughts or any? And I'm certainly grateful for you spending time with us this evening again. You and the folks you work with are patriots, and you clearly take it personally. But anything you'd like to add?
Well, thank you for your kind words. And as I've always sentimented, it's the people of Burrillville who have really gone across the state to make this a state issue. The legislation that they have, Representative Keeble has presented to the Finance Committee and the state, the House of Reps. They're not Burrillville specific. They are statewide and would make sure that this is a reality. But I truly hope that my peers in Woonsocket become more involved in this, and that they have more discussions with our city council and with our mayor and our state rep. Because I feel that this will affect us. This will affect us whether we're in Westerly or Newport or North Providence or Johnston or Woonsocket. It is a statewide issue, and we need to speak to our elected officials and advocate for ourselves that this is not a good business deal. This is not a good environmental deal. And it's the wrong place, the wrong time. So that's really my ending message is please get involved, whether or not you live in Burrillville or not. This is a statewide issue.
Great. Well, again, Alicia, thank you so very, very much for joining us. You're going to be a regular participant in this discussion as we continue to move forward. And again, for all the folks who are listening statewide, who are having a chance in the future to listen to this podcast, look at folks like Alicia or Paul or any one of the number of people who've joined us in the last few weeks. And when you look at a local issue and you say to yourself, the fix is in, there's nothing we can do about it, Well, damn it, there is. And Alicia, you and the folks you work with are living testament to that. So my congratulations to you.
Well, thank you again, and hats off to Paul as well. It's very hard to come after the great Paul Roselli, so I do appreciate his efforts and learn the facts and so on, and the people in FANG and BASE and all the other great organizations like Keep Rhode Island Beautiful. It's amazing how we have come together from many spectrums of life for this. So thank you again, Pat.
All right, we're going to be talking again in the next week or so. So again, Alicia and Kelley joining us live via the Go Local Live network here on the Coalition Radio. Folks, we're going to take one more quick break, and then we've got some folks from Reason Magazine joining us. You are listening to the Coalition on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network, broadcasting live on the Go Local Live network here at the Go Local Live Broadcast Center, 90 Way Bossett Street, here in La